Yeah,
Awesome.
so I was so happy to introduce you all to like a new guest speaker on this channel called Brian Bajan. Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome. I
Yeah,
appreciate
so
it.
like I'm really excited to have you here because like when I got on this whole journey of embodiment, you were actually the first coach that I was really like inspired by or that really even got me onto this whole path because I before that I didn't even know what was grounding. How can I open my heart? How can I like really relate with people like on a deeper level, like to really connect and get back from like get down from my head, like thinking all the time to like really into the body and experiencing. So yeah, like super excited to go on like a journey on these kind of topics. So today's theme is gonna be around like why embodiments will change your life. And I mean, you are, well, one of the best embodiment coaches that I know. You've been giving
Thank you.
workshops around the US and around Europe for like many years. I think you're a trained hypnotherapist, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Many years ago.
hypnotherapist many years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
I
And
practiced as a hypnotherapist first. Yes.
yeah.
So,
And so, like, Brian also has a YouTube channel. It's called The Fearless Man. He has over 100,000 subscribers, and he talks about like all these subtleties there about like about interaction, about like social interaction, about dating, but also about basically how can you embody more in your life? How can you have like success and real confidence? Um, and yeah, so yeah, I'm super excited to have you here. Is there anything you want to like add to this very short intro of yours?
no, I think it's great. I love that you really focused on the embodiment piece and the consciousness piece. That's what my work's really about. Even though the YouTube channel has a large theme of dating and masculinity, working with men, the work is really about the embodiment and the consciousness. That theme just got started, 15, 20 years ago, and it's kind of stuck. And so I feel like to get away from it, I need to create a new channel.
Yeah,
And I will eventually, but it's a lot of it is in there. So I'm noticing I'm getting more and more female viewers, which I really enjoy when they pop up and they
yeah,
say, "Oh, your channel's really helped me a lot," and I'm like, "Well, it's really nice to work. I've worked with so many men. It's nice to work with women once in a while too."
exactly.
And
Yeah, and like the whole
I
theme
want
of
any
like,
women on your videos to know that there's still a lot of stuff in there that has nothing to do with dating if you go in there and actually look.
and
So
even in dating, like for women, like how can I open my heart?
yeah,
How can I connect? That's something that everyone wants to know, right?
or
And you're
people that are
talking about
married,
this.
or people that are
Yeah,
married, people that want to work on their long-term relationships. We get a lot of those. So good stuff.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so this is actually why I was so fascinated because originally I got into like this whole work also because of dating because I just realized I want to get to like a deeper understanding like there's something that some people are living or embodying that makes them connect on a so much deeper level with the opposite sex but also with people in general, and I never really understood what it was until I started to follow you and your work, and I started to see like actually human interaction is all about like what's happening energetically, almost like what's happening in the body. How am I feeling? How is the other person feeling? And how does that in like kind of like impact the way we're interacting with each other? Can I open my heart? Can I feel my grounding? Can I feel my turn on? And can I be open, or am I like needy and I'm trying to like get something from this other person? Or am I just here like grounded in myself and offering myself as a with openness but not with neediness? And like all of these subtleties I wasn't aware of at all, and I think that's massively changed my interaction with women, with other people, and just like my whole life. So yeah.
yeah. I think it's a weird thing that we don't think about our body first when we think about communication with another person. We think about the other person first, and I'm not saying that's wrong or right. What I'm saying is that we kind of disregard our body altogether and say it's all about the other person, and that doesn't make any sense at all, even on a logical level. Because if all your emotions and all your sensations and every bit of you which you're sharing with another person is felt through the body, at least this physical projection of you, this personality you've taken on, and you disregard the body altogether, and then you try to communicate with a person, there's nobody home for them to communicate with.
Yeah.
You make it all about them, and they can't feel your emotions. They feel you thinking, they feel you analyzing, trying to figure out how to make them happy, how to make them, and then there's nobody for them to relate to because you're not home. You're gone.
Yeah.
It's kind of like driving a race car or maybe a motorcycle and saying, oh, the motorcycle, the race car doesn't matter, just the road. I'm just going to concentrate on the
Yeah.
road, and I'm going to forget that I'm in a car. I'm going to forget. And then you can't feel the road because you feel the road through the car, or you got to become one with the car. You got to become one with the motorcycle. You got to become one with the skis. And why don't we do that with the body when we communicate with other
Yeah.
people? So that when I'm talking to you and I feel your sadness, I can feel it right in here in my heart. Or if I'm sad, you can feel my sadness or my joy. Or it's everything. And
So for people, can be like, maybe some people are a bit confused. So like, what do you even mean by embodiment? What do you mean by this feeling and all these kind of things? Because for us, maybe it's like obvious, but some people are like, what the heck are you even talking about? Like, it sounds interesting. I would love to like go deeper, but what the heck are you talking about, really?
well, embodiment is a misnomer. It's this idea that we're not in our bodies. We got to get into our bodies to relate to other people, which is on the surface what it looks like. The truth is, we're not our bodies either. So what we're doing is we've created a resistance to the body. If I have a bunch of sadness in my heart and I don't want to feel it, anger in my gut, or I'm ashamed of my turn on, which happens in the hips around the groin, where passion is, I'll start micro tightening, binding fascia, binding different parts of the body up in that area so I don't feel the emotion or the sensations in that part because I don't want to feel the sadness. And when I do that, I lock out. This is what yoga is all about. You lock out, and then I lock up here. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I have no relationship to this because to go back here hurts. There's sadness from a
Mm.
past trauma there. Or maybe I have sexual trauma down in my hips, or maybe I have anger stored in my gut and I don't want to feel it. So I'll just lock out and I live in my head and become a heady
Mm.
person. And that doesn't, and so what we do with embodiment is we're undoing all this and learning to feel those parts, all the parts of the body, right down to the littlest toe, the pinky, everything, and learning to relate to life through what's being felt through this vehicle, this body. But ultimately, at a deepest level, you're not even the body. If you keep going on this journey and you're releasing the resistance to the body, almost like a hose, you get more flow through the body and you begin to realize the body is just a conduit for things to come into form. You're not even the body. It's almost like you release beyond the body. So embodiment goes into beyond the embodiment. I don't have a term for it, but you get the idea to where you're
Yeah.
kind of living in flow state. The deeper you go into embodiment, the more you'll start living, speaking, talking, flowing in flow states because you won't have
Mm.
resistance to the now. You won't have getting rid of embodiment, you start living in the now, you start flowing with the now, you start living in more courage, peace, joy, because all the pain that you suffer in life comes from this body and its relationship to this world. If you get used to feeling this body all the time, all that stuff starts healing. It starts going away.
Mm.
You start living through your heart. You start living through your turn on. You start living through your grounding. You start enjoying people. You start laughing more, and life just gets better. You get
Yeah.
healthier
Yeah.
too.
And I think for some, like for people to kind of get a little bit of a grasp of what you're actually talking about is that like the feeling of like I want to reach a goal, and then I kind of like I get the goal and I have the idea that I'm gonna be happy if I reach the goal. And then if I
Mm.
actually get there, oftentimes we realize it's actually not gonna make us really happy. And it's because it's like a mental concept of like I want to get there, I need to get there, and then we're trying to like get, but we're trying to get the feeling through the action. But what's really the
Yeah.
feeling is like what's happening inside of my body right now. Am I happy? Am I feeling like, what am I feeling? Am I feeling joy? Am I feeling, what am I really feeling? And so when someone is just working towards a goal and 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 not aware of what's happening in the body in that whole process, then actually we might get away from our happiness instead of like really getting like, getting more fulfilled, because we're just running after some idea. And I think embodiment is a lot about, what's actually present in my body, in my life right now, rather than what am I projecting out to like other moments to like then maybe feel something, which is again a mental concept, because once we get there it might be completely different.
Yep. Yeah. It's happiness is found in the acceptance of the now, and it's not found in some future goal. And positive thinkers, there was a great admiral. What was his name? He said he wasn't an admiral at the time. He crashed in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, went into the Hanoi Hilton, the worst, I guess, the worst prison camp in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and he was there for 7 years. And I think this is a metaphor for letting go. And he saw a lot of people come in there and die, and they didn't last very long, not even a year, and they couldn't make it. They got depressed, and he survived the whole 7 years and came out just fine. And he was tortured, had his leg broken, went through hell, living hell. And they asked him, they said, how did you survive? And why did, what happened to other people that they couldn't last very long? And he said, oh, it's very easy. It's very simple. The positive thinkers died first. And they were like, really? And he said, yeah. He said, the people that came in there and said, oh, we're going to be rescued in 6 months by Christmas. This war will be over. Positive, positive, positive. 6 months comes and goes. And nothing happens. They're living for the future. They're living for a goal. Oh, another 6 months, it comes and goes. And eventually they get so depressed, so disillusioned, they die. And he said the real secret to success, and this is embodiment, this is releasing, this is why he became an admiral, is because he said, you get up every day and you take inventory of reality exactly the way it is. You say, look, I'm in a prisoner of war. I'm a prisoner of war in Vietnam. I don't know when I'm going to be rescued. I've got a broken leg. This is my life right now. Can I accept it fully for what it is? And then when you get to the full acceptance of the now, then you say, now how can I make this the best day possible? And that's how you get faith. He says, by full acceptance of the now, then you say, how is life going to get better from here? That's where faith comes from. That's where real practice comes from. And then your goals, when you get them, feel amazing. But you're not running from the now to get to a goal. You're accepting the now and saying, what's the next step to the goal? Very different process, right? And I think that's a very powerful process when you think about it. That's what all of life's about. You got to love your now first. Well, he probably didn't love his now, he accepted it. But if you can get to a point where you love your life just the way it is, you don't need a damn thing to change, then getting goals is easy, growing your life is easy, having new experiences is easy, and they all add to an already amazing life. You won't stop growing. The nature of life is growth. You'll grow forever. But if you're running from your now, when you get your goal, the crash will be, especially if it's a big goal. If you hate yourself now and you get your $1 million, you're going to hate yourself $1 million more. If you are running from an illness because you hate your illness, you're feeding the illness. And that's the challenge that most people will. They refuse to fall in love with their now because they're afraid they won't go after their goal. And
yeah, I mean, I've definitely experienced this too. I mean, back when I was studying at university in the second year of university, I wanted to kind of on some subconscious level prove to myself how awesome I am. And I was doing all these things at the same time, like while I was studying and I was doing improv theater, I was dancing salsa, I was doing this project, that project, all kinds of things. And all these projects on their own were awesome, but it was just way too much, and I was motivated by it's not enough. I need to do this as well, and this as well, and this as well. And in the end, I got miserable. I developed all kinds of allergies and all that, and it was all because I wanted to prove to myself that I'm worthy, that I'm worthy, that I'm that I'm doing something that is of value and all that. But I was completely disconnected from my body. I was completely disconnected from the now, what's really happening. And I think that was also part of what got me into more kind of embodiment stuff. And I'm curious, can you maybe expand a little bit on how did you discover all of that, and how was your journey? Because people, I think people love to hear stories. And so, what is your story?
Okay. How did I get started? Well, I was about as analytical and heady as you get. I thought the whole world was going to be solved by me figuring stuff out and thinking really hard. And I did a lot of thinking. My first experience of getting out of that was hypnosis, learning to relax the mind. But I still had a really strong analytical mind. Even in the hypnosis school, they would notice how analytical I was. And so I began my first business. I was working really hard. I was hustling. I was pushing, and I would help people a lot as I went through hypnosis and different things. And people would come to me with all their problems because I was really intellectual. I figured everything out through books and through knowledge. And I would explain to them like simple answers that they would, wow, that changed my life. They'd be like super excited and, oh, this is amazing information. And they'd want to write it all down. And what I noticed was their lives were changing and mine wasn't. My data helped them immensely because they were more embodied than me. I didn't know that at the time, but they could feel and relate and apply what I was teaching without so much being super heady about it. I didn't know how to do anything without it going through the supercomputer first of my analytical mind, my neocortex. And so my buddy, who was very successful, I watched him go from he was making 15,000 a month as a salesman. He quit, started his own business, and 91 or 2 days later, he was over 100K a month in sales in his new business. So I was like, damn, how did you do that? And so he introduced me to this guy that got him embodied, got him into feeling, taught him to move through all his limiting beliefs and his stories, which are stored in the body about money. And he said, you got to meet this guy. And so I went and met him. And at first I was kind of resistant because I was intellectual, but I kept going back. And I ended up spending 4 years training with this guy. And this guy, Carl, what he did was he basically got me out of my head. He would every day he would say, Brian, he was hard on me. He was not a gentleman. He was a good person. He cared, but he was not gentle with me because I was so intellectual, so analytical. He used to say, Brian, you're so in your head, you're above your head. And he'd say, your consciousness is floating up here somewhere. And he said, and he would just teach me all kinds of movements and processes for getting into my body. So I stopped thinking so much and start feeling more. So the whole idea of getting into the body is I'm up here thinking about everything I don't want to feel down here. And he wants me to move and explore these movements so that I begin to feel everything down here that I don't want to feel, which usually starts with grief and crying and sadness and gets me out of here. And it took months, man. I got into his intensive and it took like 5 months for me to begin to feel what he called feeling, where I really began to feel not from my mind, but from my body directly. And I remember the first time I started to feel with him, it was my wrist, actually. I started to get this weird sensation. I was moving the wrist in a way that caused this almost like turn on sensation right here. And it started to spread through my whole body slowly through the practice of movement. And because I leaned into that. Once I got it, I understood that what feeling was. And I started to say, can I expand this through my whole body? And that work was fundamental and life-changing in as far as who I became. From that point, I started to understand what people were getting when I would give them advice. They weren't thinking about the advice. They were feeling the advice. And I had always thought about it. And then they were able to apply it neurologically to their life and have a huge transition.
And so what do you mean when you say like they were feeling it rather than thinking?
Well, most people, not most people, intellectual people like me, or people that are stuck I'll say there are people out there that can feel a lot, but when it comes to certain areas where they have trauma, they'll intellectualize. Mm-hmm. They'll stop feeling. So what that means is I have a pain in my heart. I had my heart broken, let's say, and I don't want to feel it anymore. It hurts so bad. So I start numbing and I start tightening and I start shutting down right here and closing my heart. And then I say, okay, I need to learn to relate to other people through my heart again. Whether that's conscious or unconscious, I need to feel other people. I need to relate. I need to stop being shut down. So then I start analytically coming up with stories and reasons for my shut down heart. Well, it was because of this time, because of that. And if I go back and solve that, now I'm in the past. and I'm thinking about the future, and I'm no longer focused on this. I'm focused on a concept of what this is. And then so that I'm analyzing, okay, if I solve that and I do this and I go over and do this, then, and I'm nowhere near the actual problem, but I'm in all the stories I've created about the problem. And every time I analyze, I create 2 or 3 more stories. So now I'm placing all these new stories into my past, and I'm getting farther and farther away from the feeling. So the next thing that happens is I meet a teacher, and let's say the teacher says, you need to feel. Okay, you need to feel. And I go, okay, I'm going to feel. Feel your heart, because that's where the pain is. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to feel my heart. And I'm intellectually feeling my heart now. I'm thinking about feeling my heart. I'm not feeling my heart. I'm sitting there going, okay, I feel it. And they're like, feel it more. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling it. I'm really feeling it. Now I'm dramatizing feeling my heart. Oh, it's so painful. Oh, because I feel a little pain there. So now unconsciously you think, well, if I feel a little pain and I need to go through that pain to get back to love, I'm going to amplify that pain a little bit and feel it more so I can get rid of it. Yeah, that's the ticket. And now I'm just dramatizing the pain. Then I go back to intellectualizing the pain. Then I bounce between drama and intellectualizing, and where I'm thinking about it in the past and the future, and I'm still nowhere near present. I've created all these defense mechanisms and then I go back to numbness. Fuck it. I'm going to go watch Netflix and drink some beer. I'm going to go masturbate, so I don't have to feel what's here now. The real key is feeling. Feeling is none of that. The feeling is when I have a direct experience of this, not through my analytical mind. My consciousness, it becomes aware of this like I feel first, then I observe. And I observe what the body's feeling. I let the body go free and feel. And when I'm intellectualizing, what I'm doing is I'm focusing here and thinking about feeling. So it's almost like the energy goes here first, then here. But when I'm feeling, the energy goes here first, gets felt by the nervous system, and then I observe it here without thinking, without analyzing it and making it right or wrong. And if I am analyzing it, I observe that too. And I start untying all the analyzations till it's just raw feeling running through me like water through a hose. And that process takes a bit for people to get. But when they get it, it's life changing on a huge level. That was the one
what did it change
thing
in your
I would
life?
say about.
And what did it change in your life then?
Everything. Being super intellectual, I couldn't feel. I had a lot of health problems. So, on a physical level, tons of health problems resolved. I started becoming more confident, drew more happy people into my life. In the past, when I used to think about something, let's say I wanted to meet a beautiful woman or make more money, I would actually push it away. Because I would think about it, it would create pain because I knew I couldn't get it because I didn't have the embodiment to get it. I had the negative belief systems. So then that pain would then cause a pain reaction in the body, and the reticular activating system, or law of attraction, whatever you want to call it, would want to push away the experience. Reticular activating system being that I'm sorting for an experience. And it would want to push away the experience of making money because it perceives making money as pain now. Because in my mind, making money is painful. In my mind, going on a date is painful. So it says, get that out of your life. Get that out of your life. Pain-pleasure principle. So as I started to associate these feet with pleasure again, I started to feel pleasure. And then I was able to feel that pleasure and then put that pleasure into meeting a beautiful woman, making money. Then these things start to become fun, healing the body. The body starts healing because all this binding and tightening and resisting and taking consciousness, let's say, out of the gut, because you have gut issues, autoimmune issues, that consciousness goes back into the gut, and then the gut can start to relax again. It gets out of fight flight and can start to heal itself, and all the adaptations can start to undo themselves. It's endless what comes from it. But the big one that comes from it is just as you get really embodied and go beyond embodiment into flow, you just plain get happier and life gets easy. There was a teacher that once said at the bottom level of the emotional scale, which is a massive amount of disembodiment, repression, pushing down, shutting down, apathy, grief, and fear, life is stingy. Life's a fight. In the middle level, lust, anger, pride, that area, life is a true fight. You can get things, but you have to work really hard, and I have to work 80 hours a week, and I have to suffer to get them. at the top of the emotional scale, courage, acceptance, willingness, neutrality, love, peace, life becomes giving and easy and fun, and work become, I used to think of work, how could work be fun? Work is work, man. Now work is a blast. I love to work. I love to go create new videos. I love to help people.
Mm,
Life is fun.
mm,
And I think that's what we're life is meant to be flow state at the highest level of being.
yeah.
And that's what's beyond embodiment is flow state. You get to embodiment, and true embodiment is allowing the water to run uninhibited through a hose with no kinks, or the
Mm.
electricity to run through the wire with no breaks, or whatever you want to say.
And I
And
feel like
then
that,
this natural expression comes out of you of all the things that want to be lived through you. So,
yeah, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And I believe that this whole idea that actually we are on some level resisting what we want in our lives because we are not aware of all the stuff that's stored in our systems around like making money, having beautiful relationships, and so on and so on. Like um, we are not aware that there's actually so much that's like in the way of that, but that is like mainly stored in our bodies, in our system. And this is why we experience life as a struggle, as a fight, as all that, because we're not aware that like we're kind of like fighting ourselves. We're fighting our
yes,
own
it's all
own
fighting
resistance.
yourself.
Yeah,
It's all you.
yeah,
That's what people don't realize. Guys think, "Oh, I can't meet women." Well, stop pushing them away. Women say, "Oh, guys are all dicks." Well, stop finding dicks. Stop being programmed to go find dicks. You create it. And they
yeah,
say, "No, that's not true. That can't be true." And I'm like, "It's totally true. You are designed by nature as a man to attract women. That's what you were designed biologically to do. So stop shutting down on them. Stop pushing them away. Stop going into anger. Stop going into frustration. Stop going into disembodiment, which turns them off, and
yeah,
learn to fully be this animal man that you were designed to be that polarizes women. And it's easier. It's harder to get there, but once you're there, it's easier to be.
yeah,
Same thing with money. We're designed to let abundance run through us. Stop resisting the money. Stop resisting the success. But they're like, no, no, money's hard to make. You got to do all this stuff. That stuff that you got to do to make money is easy. It's actually
hmm,
really easy. It's value and abundance creation. You go out and create value in the world, you can make money. If you truly create real value for people, they're going to give you money for it because they're going to feel it. The value means they feel good inside. It makes them
hmm,
feel happier, alive, healthier. It's not logic, it's a feeling. And if you can learn to create value through a feeling, people will pay you.
yeah, yeah.
It's just that simple. It's
It's
none of this
interesting
stuff is
because
complicated. But I'll say this: it used to seem massively complicated to me,
yeah, yeah.
and that all
Yeah,
went
and
away.
it's also hard to get like you cannot understand this with the mind somehow. Like you have to kind of like experience it more. Like and you also talk a lot about releasing on your channel and just in general.
Mm-hmm.
And like I had so many examples in my life where I was just feeling some kind of resistance about some kind of topic or person. And when I just released on it, as in like I was just like letting all of the stored thoughts and emotions and resistance around that personal situation come up, then at some point it just gets resolved. Like I always like to tell
Yeah,
this little story of like there was this WhatsApp group, like I was in some company, I was working in some company, and then there was like this company and other affiliate people that had like a WhatsApp group. And for some reason they hadn't added me, even though I was already in that company for more than half a year. And I was like, why do they not add me to this WhatsApp group? Like, well, I'm not part of the group, and all kinds of stories came up, and it was like, this is so unfair, and blah blah blah, and I was like getting angry, and all kinds of emotions were coming up in stories. And so at some point it was like, you know what? I'm just gonna release on this whole thing now. I'm just gonna see, can I get fully at ease with the situation and just be completely okay with whatever's gonna happen. And then I sat down and I released on it until I was like, you know what? Like I don't care if they add me to the group or not, but not from like an anger point, but it was like, I'm okay, like it's gonna happen the way it needs to happen. And I was just feeling completely fine. And I was completely like relaxed. And I was like, okay, finally I can relax. And then half an hour later they added me to the group. I didn't even have to say anything.
yeah,
And this is like a funny little example. It sounds like a small thing, but this is like how how it works, like how bigger things work as well. It's just there's more resistance maybe around that. But like once we start to understand that principle, life can get so much more easy because we're working on the root cause of the things and not on all our stories that we create about
Yeah.
the problems in the
What
situations.
did you just do there? You didn't go try to solve the logical reason for them. You solved the emotional resistance. And
Yeah.
there's a difference between logically I should do X, Y, and Z to solve this problem, and then there's emotionally I'm obviously out of alignment because I feel heavy. I
Yeah.
don't feel peace. I don't feel love. So I got to peace with it, and either the answer shows up, go do X, Y, and Z now, and it's easy, or it just resolves itself, which in your case, it just resolved itself. That
Yeah.
happens all the time. Clients, myself, ridiculous amounts of times.
Hmm.
Whenever I crash down the emotional scale, which I've had like dark night of the soul, these moments where I go all the way down, and boom. And I had that happen recently. Everything goes wrong. When I'm at I was successful for years and my life was flowing and I was this teacher of all this embodiment stuff. And then recently I had this crash and the crash was bad and it shot me into more anxiety than I've ever felt in my life. It was horrible. I was like, everything just collapsed on me. Everything I believe in fell apart. My mother died, my brother died, my uncle died, my dad's wife died, who was a different woman. My dad really needed some support, broke up with this girl, and lost a business partner, walked out on the business. I had to have the business handled by a different back end, and the back end of the business was all handed over to somebody else, and just everything was falling apart. And I was in
Mm.
complete anxiety and fear. I crashed. I was sitting with my mom every night in hospice, and it all happened at once. And I asked myself, why is this happening? What's going on? Why is my whole life falling apart when I know this stuff inside out? Why can't I get out of it? And then it hit me. Oh shit. When I first moved here to the mountains, I sat down in my big, beautiful, empty home because I just moved into it. And I said, well, you could say it's your unconscious, your ego, God, doesn't matter. And I was in feeling, I was moving, I was meditating, and I wanted to go to the top of the emotional scale higher than I've ever been before. I wanted to live up there really high. And I said, and I was born with anxiety. With anxiety ran through my family. I lived with it. And so I'll come back to that. And I remember sitting there and I literally opened mouth, you use my words, and I said to God, God, if you have to take it all away from me, take it all away from me. I want to go to the top. And I said, if I have to lose all my money, and if I have to lose everything. And then I went, oh shit, why did I say that? I shouldn't have said that out loud because your words have power, right?
Why if I just couldn't
And
keep a little bit of the money?
yeah. And then I'll keep a little. Yeah. And then 6 months later, I fell. I ripped all the skiing, ripped all that, began the whole process. I ripped all this away. I have this little bump here now. I had to have cadaver tissue built in. And my life began falling apart. All these people started dying around me, broke up the girlfriend thing, the business partner thing. And everything started imploding on me. And all this anxiety shot into my body like I've never felt in my entire life. And I finally realized in the end, what that did was when I agreed, and I believe this, when I agreed and said out loud, I'm willing to have everything taken away because I want to go to the top, life said, you've got this deep rooted family core epigenetics, basically anxiety program gene running inside your body. It's been there since you're really good at managing it, but you were born in agoraphobia. You didn't like leaving the house when you were a child. We got to get it out. And so it took me all the way down. That's all that was left. And then I had to figure out how to get out of it, and I did. People were saying, oh, you need to give me all kinds of answers that just didn't make sense based on anything I'd ever learned. And I found my way out. And when I did it, I did a bunch of work on the lower centers, embodiment, healing all the anxiety, trauma. I had to go deep into it. And within about 3 months, I came out of it happier than I've ever been in my entire life. More joy, more peace, more love. That thing is gone. I stopped worrying about all these little things in the past that I'd worried about. And suddenly, everything got easy again. Everything that was falling apart, losing my money, losing my this, losing my that, all not only repaired itself, got better. And all came back with spades. And all these successes, one after another, after another, after another. And all these new business opportunities showed up. And it seemed ridiculous that I was ever scared in the first place or ever had that anxiety in the first place. I can't even relate to it anymore like I used
Hmm.
to.
Wow.
And I feel like I had to have a little bit of a, I don't know what the term would be, psychic surgery in a sense.
Mm. It kind of
And a
reminds
dark night
me.
of the soul.
It kind of reminds me of that quote of Zen Parion, who says like every great life has had in it a great renunciation. Like
Yeah.
maybe it's not a renunciation 100%, but it's like this thing that like something big happens and you're like, whoa, now life is taking me.
Yeah.
How am I handling it?
Well, if you had, what happened to me was really interesting because I could have gone down some dark roads. I could have gone and started taking all these drugs and medications to try to heal myself, which just wasn't the route I wanted to do, and I had people pressuring me and I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't. Luckily, I also had a bunch of people saying they were on my side that were like, nah, you know better. You know what you're doing. You're an expert at this. And sure enough, man, when it turned around big.
And so how
So,
did like embodiment help you to go through all of this, and what did you actually do to like
well,
go through that and get out the
embodiment
other end?
works with energy centers of the body, right? Embodiment is really turning on all the energy centers. If you go back to Hindu, the chakras are a very real thing, and you can see them. First chakra, second chakra, third chakra deal with anxiety and grounding. And so the lower body deals with anxiety and grounding, connection into the earth, and not just grounding into the earth, but receiving energy from the earth. Roots from a tree go into the ground and then pull nutrients up from the earth.
Mm.
And where a lot of anxiety comes from, well, first off, I had an amygdala hijack, if you've ever heard of that. So that means the amygdala normally energy runs through the amygdala and comes up to the prefrontal cortex, and then I can focus and get stuff done. When
Hmm.
there's amygdala hijack, the energy gets stuck in the amygdala area, hippocampus area. Amygdala grows really big and then creates a ton of anxiety. The energy can't get to the prefrontal cortex, so it's hard to focus, it's hard to think. And then you
Mm.
can't feel your body either. Like I literally was like popping out of my body. And I was like, why can't I feel my heart anymore? I used to always feel in my heart. This is crazy. I can't even do my meditations. So what I figured out was that, I started to go deeper into the first three chakras because the first three chakras relate to physical reality and the physical body big time, and
Hmm.
anxiety and fear. And so I started doing lots of chakra work around the first three chakras. The base chakra, which is survival, food, water, shelter, money, being taken care of on a physical level. Second chakra, which is creative, babies, creative energy, passion, and third chakra, which is self confidence, gut instinct, self esteem, personal power. And I
Hmm.
just worked those like crazy, and then worked to get my testosterone back up, knowing that testosterone will bring the not the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex back online, and
Hmm.
linking it all together. And within no time, I started to feel everything. Every day, it got less and less and less, and I just started moving more and more, exploring these energies more and more, turning this all back on. And pretty soon, the anxiety was like I'd feel it for 5 hours, and it was weird because I get up in the morning, feel the anxiety through the morning, maybe 5 hours, and the rest of the day I'd be confident. Then it went down to 4 hours, then it went down to like 3 hours. Then it was like 1 hour, then it was like 10 minutes in the morning. Oh, all this anxiety. 10 minutes later, it's gone, and then it just was gone
Hmm.
one day, and I had no more anxiety, and I was like, I feel fantastic,
Hmm.
and life is beautiful, and I'm in love with everything again. And I was really rooted into my lower body now. And then I connected. Once I got rooted into the lower body, I started massively opening the heart again, then running the energy up my spine to the sixth chakra through because where a lot of problems come from a lot of people, for a lot of people, is when they're ungrounded in the lower body and trying to turn on all these upper centers. Like, oh, I'm going
Hmm.
to open my heart and I'm going to connect to, turn on my third eye, and I'm going to, and then the power that powers all that comes from the grounding. It comes from the earth beneath you. It comes from that energy coming from the ground, and then feeds up to the heart, feeds up here, and that's what the embodiment's doing. It's unblocking all those channels
Hmm. Hmm.
and turning everything on, and then your field gets really big up here because you're rooted down here.
Hmm.
As below, so above. That's an old saying, and a flower can't be a flower without a really good root system pulling from the ground, right? A
Hmm.
tree can't be a tree unless it's rooted into the ground really solidly and then comes up. and that supplies all its, a big, think of a big building, huge building, high rise, has to be rooted deep into the ground. And think of how much stuff comes from that ground, not just support, but they probably got plumbing coming in from the ground,
Mm,
wiring coming in from the ground, everything it needs to light that building up.
mm.
We're the same way. That's why earthing is the thing, getting
Yeah.
electrons from the earth, all that stuff. So,
And so one thing I found really fascinating about your teachings as well is that a lot of people, like when you say embodiment, because this term has already been overused, I think, in the last couple of years, because
it
everyone is
has.
like, we're doing embodiment, we're doing embodiment. And like some people are just kind of like shaking their bodies and saying, yeah, we're doing embodiment, which, yeah, might be, using the body, but it might not be the deeper embodiment that we're talking about here, right? And
Exactly.
and so what I would like to like
Like
touch on.
yoga.
Sorry.
Most yoga is turned into exercise. It's not yoga
Exactly, like
anymore.
exactly. This is like the one of the big examples for something that has actually a very deep root. Like yoga has a very deep root of understanding all the chakras, all like how can you really work with the inner energies of the body. Also, qigong is another classic that actually really works with inner energies of the body. But then, like yoga in our Western world is often just like asanas, which are basically just some physical, positions, kind of like stretching and stuff like that. But what I found really fascinating about your teachings is that you really talk about the energetic principles behind basically how your own system works, and then how you relate to other people and how you relate to life or like to achieve goals and all that. And it's really like a whole thing about understanding how am I really working? Not like on the mental level, like I try to understand like the world, but how like what's really happening. And what I found for myself is that a lot of the stuff that has been holding me back in like relating with women, in just connecting more deeply with people, like with friends, also in being more successful in basically in anything that I'm doing or being able to reach my goals, has been to start to understand that energetically something is holding me back inside of my body. And there are different kind of like energetic things in a way that are happening, that are going on that might prevent me. And one thing you've said is grounding, which is a lot about like creating the space even to hold yourself in a way, right? Like you create your own space to hold yourself. Like grounding has a lot to do with the back as well, not the legs, right? It's like you're rooting
Yeah.
yourself into the ground. And another thing that's like energetically happening when I go into the world is like feeling my heart and like opening my heart and relating with the world through an open heart, which is like something that can actually be a physical experience in the body. Like when I open up and I'm sitting with someone, I'm in a conversation, and I can like energetically open my heart, I feel that the interaction is going in a different way. Like there's a different level of like intimacy or openness or connection that's possibly gonna open if I can open my heart. And also sexuality, like sexual energy, like if I can tap into that energy, there's gonna be a different dynamic. And having like awareness of these kinds of energies, and that actually I can consciously influence how these energies are running in my system, or if they're stuck, or if they're not running, or kind of like distorted in a way. The more I can consciously work with these things, the more I understand what is really going on in my life, not what I think is going on, but actually happening, why I have the problems I have in my life. And so this was
Yeah.
such a big revelation for me to understand that actually how I internally, like how my energetics internally are working, this is how I'm interacting and what's happening in my life. It's not about what I think about it or what things I have to do to solve it, but how I'm energetically going through the world. And so I would be really curious for you to touch on, like, what do you think are the most important things, as in like these inner energetics that you have to be aware of, or develop to just be more, well, to live a more fulfilled life, more successful life, to be able to interact better with people, and to so what do you think are those main points that people should start to work with?
Well, you got the basics right there. I mean, I always start with the grounding in the heart. And you ultimately want to connect up, and you want that energy to be coming down and up. But that energy is at a higher level of consciousness. At the lower level of consciousness, you got to start with the grounding. You got to start with the root. You got to start with your connection into the earth and then receiving energy from the earth. So grounding is, a lot of people think of grounding as I'm going to send my energy into the earth. Well, it's just as important that you receive energy from the earth, just like root system would receive nutrients from the earth. So that piece is essential, because if you're not connected into the ground and you can't feel the ground, you can't relate to the ground, it's really hard to feel your heart at the level that you're talking about. I mean, if you were to take right now, and we'll do a little practice around this a little bit, but just for your own sake, if you were to close off your grounding, like tighten your perineum, tighten your ass, tighten your ankle, tighten your feet, and then still try to feel your heart, you're going to notice how much harder it is to feel your heart. And unfortunately, most people, it shuts it down.
Noticing,
most people are micro tightening all these areas. Their psoas, their hips, their perineum, their ass, and that's where they get the anal. The energy starts pushing up, and they have no relationship to the earth, and that's why they seem so serious all the time, because they can't get their heart on. They can't get the vulnerability on, which is all through the throat, the heart, through here. So if we were to take away this whole concept of chakras, I would say you've got your grounding, which is down here, and there's energy that flows up and down. And then you've got your feeling, which is up here, which is what we would call the heart. But the feeling runs through all the sensitive parts of the arm, through the sensitive part of the chest, into the throat, and into the facial expressions. So this is where we get seen and felt, is through our face, our micro expressions, our eyes, the cheeks, how people perceive us on an emotional level, because we give off signals through micro expressions, through our throat, which controls our vocal expression, through our heart, which conveys love and connection, through the sensitivity of the forearms, because that's all the vulnerable parts of the body. Those are the feminine parts. Masculine parts of the body are the protected parts out here. If you touch these, you can't feel these as much as you can feel these, much more sensitive, The throat is much more sensitive than, say, right here, the back of the throat. The chest is a lot more sensitivity here than in the back of the chest, and the back. And so understanding that relationship becomes essential in the operation of this vehicle, which is your communication device for the physical world. Without a body, there is no communication with the physical world, guys. You're not in your body. There's no way to communicate. You need this thing. Okay. So the first step is grounding, feeling that earth beneath you and letting it flow, so that it's like the negative wire on a car battery. If you don't hook that negative wire, it doesn't matter how much juice is in the battery. Car ain't starting. Car ain't doing anything. It's just sitting there. If it's loose, it's going to spark and it's going to have trouble, right? So you can have that positive wire even hooked up. It ain't going to work. Then you hook up the positive wire. Now, how do they tell you to hook up a car battery? You hook the negative first, ground it out, then you hook the positive, right? So it has a place to ground out the energy. And
any little tip on how people can start to develop the grounding? Like if they have no idea what you're talking about? Or we're going to
I'll go through it with you with a practice, and we'll do a little grounding and a heart practice. But feel it. I just want to, the whole point is that heart practice that feels so good that everybody wants to cultivate in yoga and all this stuff, like open the heart, comes from really good grounding. This was the mistake everybody made. When I had my amygdala hijack, everybody's saying, oh, we got to get that amygdala shrunk down. We got to work up here. And chemically, they're trying to work in the brain and they're trying to work on the amygdala. The answer was not there. The answer was down here. When I found the answer, I had to intuitively think about this. All the anxiety in the mystical systems from the past was all in the lower body. First, second, third chakra. When I started to ground those out every day and started to clean those up, this all started to correct itself up here, because now the energy had a place to flow and go like it was supposed to. And so that's the mistake everybody makes. And that's why I don't call yoga. Real yoga, they worked on the first, second, and third chakra a lot. A lot of your storefront yoga, modern yoga, they're just trying to get the heart open, and or they're just doing exercise stretching. I've seen bodybuilders with more embodiment than yogis, big muscular bodybuilders. Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was young, man. He used to meditatively feel every movement. He would build mind-body connection through his muscles. That was a big thing he did. And I think this had a lot to do with his success at a young age, his level of embodiment through bodybuilding. So let's talk about this whole idea of embodiment. To me, the problem with things like lifting weights or yoga, they can also be damaging. What I mean by that is you can use those to numb out. You can use those to disconnect from your body. And we don't want to disconnect from our body. And the reason I say that is because we as humans, we love technique, especially guys. So give me a sound set 3-step, 5-step, 6-step, 7-step process that's going to get me from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And so here's a yoga. Do these poses exactly like this every day and you'll eventually be enlightened. It's not how it works. And then the poses become super bold and we become more attached to getting flexible. Like, oh, that guy's way more flexible than me. I'm going to go into competition with him. I'm going to get more flexible than him. I want to look really cool when I'm doing my yoga. This is the antithesis of yoga. This is not yoga. Yeah, it might be good that you get flexible or stretched or but that's not what it's about. So when I do movement, there's two things I do. Sometimes I do meditations to develop feeling, and sometimes I do movement. And I switch back and forth a lot. And I start very, very subtle, like real tiny, just little subtle movements. Why? You can't turn it into exercise that way. You can't turn it into a competition to be more flexible than this guy, more stronger than that guy, whatever it is, because all you got left is this little subtle movement. All that's left is to explore feeling and turn on neurology and turn on nerve endings and wake the body up. So that's how I typically start. Once you've got the feeling, then go do the big stuff and stay focused on the feeling. The depth of feeling, the exploration of getting the stories out of the tissue, that type of stuff. So to really get get the heart going, one of the things I can have people do it sitting, I can have you do it standing, is just play with this idea really quickly of if you put your feet flat on the floor while sitting and take your back off the chair, like you'll notice my back is not touching the chair. And there's a reason for that. Like this, it's harder to do. I want my spine stacked straight up for the most part, but I want it loose. I don't want it rigid. You can pull the shoulders out a little bit this way, like pull them out sideways, like as if they were going out that way. I can't get my hands in there. Go out that way or this way, versus don't pull them back, pull them sideways so that it flattens in the back a little bit. And then you'll feel your spine be straight up and down. And you can move your pelvis. If you know how to move your pelvis as guys that are watching, you'll find your pelvis has a nice spot where where you can really feel the stack of the spine. Okay. So now we got our spine kind of free. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my awareness on one leg. Let's say we start with the right leg. It's flat on the ground. And for those of you at home, if you want to do this barefoot, it can even be better. But what I want you to do is notice that this is the grounding aspect. This is the black wire. You have masculine and feminine in your leg. The masculine is the back and the outside of the leg. It's the protective parts. It's the structural parts. It's where the base and the weight is. So feel that right leg, and I want you to feel the outside of the leg from the side of the hip straight down the outside of the leg to the ground. And just become aware of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to feel here. I'm stacked on the chair. And I'm going to put the weight, a little bit of weight, gentle, on this right leg here, into the ground. A little bit of weight. And then I'm going to feel, as I lean out a little bit, I'm just going to explore through subtle movement. Even sometimes I go much subtler than this, but I'm just starting the feeling from here down to here into the ground. I'm just going to explore that feeling just a little bit. Just get a sense of it. And then I'm going to move to the back of the leg, from the back of the pelvis, down the ass, down the glute, down to the ground. And I'm just going to relax. Ask the outside of my leg to loosen, relax, develop awareness. And just notice what that feels like. Okay. And then I might move in on it.
And if you don't know what feeling means, then it's just like putting the kind of internal tension there, right?
Yeah, it's waking it up. Feeling is the lighter the energy gets, the better the energy gets, the better the feeling gets, the more in feeling you are. If it gets, as you lose that awareness and it gets thicker or heavier, eventually it gets dense and numb. And so numbness is still a feeling. It's just an overload or shutting down of feeling. So it's still a feeling. It's a dense feeling. And then as you get lighter and lighter, it gets tingly, it gets warm. You may not feel that right away, but in time you do. The same thing with the back of the leg. If I'm feeling back down here, I can feel all, you can do this standing too. And I encourage you to do it in different positions till you can feel the ground. And I relax the ankle, relax the bottom of the foot. It's a micro relaxing. It's not like a relaxing like I'm laying down going to sleep. I want everything awake and alive, but loose. And so now I'm just exploring. I can rock it, and I'm still just putting my awareness here and feeling its relationship to the earth and feeling its relationship all the way up to the chest ultimately, or the back of the chest. Okay. Same thing. I'm going to relax in the perineum now. As I move this and rock this outside of this leg, here, I'm going to relax in the perineum, which is a space between the genitals and the anus. And then I'm going to relax in the glutes. And then pretty soon, I start to create a sense of feeling through here. That's connecting into the earth, okay? Then I'm going to repeat and do this on the other side. And same thing, just explore that feeling. I'm going to take this side and I'm going to move it back and forth. And I'm going to start with the outside. Eventually this all becomes, I can do this in seconds. But eventually in the beginning, you want to take time with it. If you have a little tiny tingle, if something feels pretty good, explore that. Something feels a little light down here, explore that. Eventually it all connects up. All these nerve endings become alive and aware, and you develop a neurological relationship to the nerve endings and they become aware. And you start to get this sense of feeling through here. And what we're doing is we're slowly building the kinetic chain through the whole body's ability to work together in feeling. Okay. Then again, the ankle and the bottom of the foot, the back of the leg, and start to feel down the back of the leg as I move this one. And then I feel the perineum again and the anus and feel that. And then I move them together. So now I'll get this sense of something here connected to here. Now that is your masculine part of your grounding. Okay. Now we're going to add the feminine part, or the vulnerable part. And that is the inside. That's all this, the toes coming up through the inside. You'll notice this is much more vulnerable than this. This is protective. This is sensitive all the way into your groin where your genitals are. And then you begin to feel that. And you can do one leg at a time. It's typically easier. The mind can track the one thing better than it can track both until it becomes muscle memory. And I'll just explore that one and I'll feel the energy. The goal is to get a sense of energy coming up from the earth now instead of down into the groin. And all this becoming super sensitive. And I'll do both sides. I'll rock back and forth. I'll just explore into the feeling. And I might explore one side for a minute or two, just exploring what that feels like. I might lean into it until I can start to wake up this here, because this is an energy center right here. This will start to get turned on. And the same thing here. Explore this side. Now, you could do this for one leg, you could do for 20 minutes, 10 minutes if you want in the beginning. But in time, you can do it in a few seconds and stuff turns on. Okay? So that's the first part. Now the legs get hypersensitive. The second part is I want to get the heart kicked open. So now I start to become aware of the heart. I keep the legs grounded. Now I'm going to keep 10% of my energy on my legs. Everything I just did. Keep a little bit of the energy still, 10, 20% aware of the legs. And now I'm going to start to feel this heart a little bit. And I might rock it a little micro rocks. What I'm doing is I want the fascia right through here to micro relax. Right where the center of the heart is. Not the physical heart, but the center of the heart. So just start to notice through your rib cage if there's any micro relaxations you can do, anything in the throat, anything in the face. So the energy will drop right to here and it runs up the back into the heart. It's you don't need to know all that. You just need to move and explore. Again, check the legs. Are you still pulling energy from the ground? Can you feel the legs? And just feel that heart. And then what you're going to notice, this is the awareness I want you to build. The sensitive parts of here are the throat, the chest, the forearms. This is the sensitive part. Masculine is the outside, inside is the forearm. So what I'm going to do is move off of this. And I'm just going to let all this get sensitive. Just explore that in any way you want. Just keep it small. And feel the legs. Allow the energy from the legs, the connection of the legs, to keep this alive. Now just move it again. You can move the arm out. You can move it any way you want. You can move it up. You can open the throat. I'm not giving you any specific rules on this on purpose, because I just want you to explore wherever it feels good. Just explore, just move. And then to really illustrate this point, if you've got good feeling, the 10% in the legs, I want you to take a moment and start to shut it off. Start to close, tighten the feet a bit, the ankles, start to tighten in the groin a bit, start to tighten in the pelvis a bit, and see what happens here. It becomes harder to feel right here, doesn't it?
Mm.
Okay, then turn all that back on. Start to move the legs again. Put 50, 60, 80% of your energy on the legs for a few minutes. Turn the legs back on. And then start to welcome the feeling in the heart again, until that turns vulnerable again. And then start to take in things in the room. Like I'm looking over here at, here's my beanie, right? The warmth of the beanie, and I'm feeling that with my heart instead of my head. I might look at my car keys, which like makes me think of my car. I might look at, there's no artwork in here, otherwise I'd look at something artistic. There's a drawing I'm looking at right there on this water bottle of a mountain range. I'm taking that in. I'm feeling it here more than I'm thinking about it here. And that feeling, it almost feels like it comes at me and affects my heart and comes in. Okay. Now that was kind of fast, but you're getting the idea. Those two, that's the black and the red wire. Then from there, there's a lot more you can explore. And actually that alone, doing what we just did, I can spend a week taking you through all kinds of micro exercises to turn all that on. And I've done that many times for many clients, where I'll spend all day, all week long, waking up the whole body to make it hypersensitive to the world, to be able to feel and relate to the world. People get tripped out. They say it's like being on a mushroom sometimes. They go so deep with it. Now, my main concern about what I just did there was I kind of went through a lot fast between the two. I don't usually go that fast at all. So I want to ask you, how was that experience for you, Jonas, when I went through that?
Yeah, it was definitely a little fast, and I was also noticing a little bit of tension in my body as we're recording the interview. So I wasn't so relaxed to like go into the whole experience. And I feel like what I would because I think or I feel like a lot of people might have troubles to like experience what you're talking about when you're saying feeling. For example, now when I feel into my legs, I feel the tinglings, I feel the energy. But some people might be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And
Some
so
people do.
and so I'm wondering, what would be one thing that someone who feels like, well, it's kind of an interesting idea, but I don't even know what you're talking about. What would be an easy thing for them to like start to explore, so they might at some point get that experience?
Well, I'll say this about the person, before I say something about that. More people get it than not. It surprises me on calls. When I start to do this sometimes, and I'll go through a quick demo like that, I'm like, I might be too fast, and I got people crying. I got people going, oh my God, what was that? That was crazy. And I'm like, okay, more people are getting it today than they've ever gotten it before. That I want to acknowledge. So if you're getting it, you're getting it. If you're not getting it, and you're like me, who was stubborn in the beginning, my teacher used to say, you just got to move till you get it. Very subtle movements till you get it. He'd make me move for 10 minutes minimum to 20 minutes straight. And it took me a long time. One day I woke up to the idea, and I started having all this feeling. Now, I disagree with that. I think you can get it very quickly. If I'm there, I can usually point out exactly what's shutting off in your body to get it to turn on pretty quickly, because I can see all this stuff in you from years of doing it. Now, with that said, if you're sitting at home and you're not feeling much, you're intellectualizing most of the time, or dramatizing. So let me explain what I mean by that. First off, can you feel the ground beneath you? It always starts with the ground. Feel that earth beneath you. And just let's go real general now. Just feel the weight of the earth beneath you. And I'm going to have you do it, Jonas, as somebody I can bounce off of. So feel the weight of your chair and just relax your ass. Relax your perineum. Don't worry about the inside, the outside of the legs now. Feel the bottom of your feet on the ground. Just relax. Now, what I want you to do is start to notice your legs in particular, from your feet all the way up to your perineum to your hips, and start to notice your legs and just observe that feeling. And I'm going to ask you one simple question. Are you letting the feeling come to your consciousness, or are you trying to go down to your legs and feel it? If you're trying to go down to your legs and feel it, stop. Let your consciousness be where your consciousness is naturally, and just allow whatever you're feeling to come to you. Imagine your body's not you and you're just observing. And just breathe and allow yourself to have the experience of that feeling. Now feel the weight of your body on the chair again. Relax in your ass, relax in your perineum. Now I want you to remember, Mother Earth supports you. So just allow Mother Earth to support you as much as she does. She provides you oxygen, water, shelter, food, everything the physical body needs to survive. So as you feel that earth beneath you, can you feel that support? Just feel that. Good. Now just feel the chest as much as you do. Don't force it. Just notice what the feeling is. Keep a little bit of awareness on the legs. Feel the chest. Right here. Notice what that feels like.
It's bringing up some emotions already. It's bringing up some sadness, actually.
Okay. Ask the window. Imagine the chest as a window that opens like this. Ask it to open as much as it's willing without force, while feeling the legs. Just a little bit. You don't have to feel the legs a lot. There you go. So you put the two together and just feel. Ask the chest to open a hair more. There you go, right there. That vulnerability. Ride the wave of that vulnerability. And just sit with it. And in time, it will expand itself again. Now I want you to welcome the vulnerability in the throat. Notice what that feels like. Is there anything here? Just like a window there. And allow that to open as much as it does. And that energy can now drop. Any energy you release in the throat can drop into the chest and open the chest more. Good. And do the same thing with the cheeks. The cheeks and the eyes. Any micro tightening here? Just notice what it feels. Feel the legs too, 10%. There you go. This is a willingness to be seen. The face. All the micro tightening is because you don't want somebody to see a micro expression. So become willing to be seen. Throat is about willing to be heard. Chest is about willing to be felt. Now let all this drop right down into the chest. Feel those legs as much as you do. Okay. I'm going to ask you in a moment, I want you to take 3 or 4 deep breaths, feeling all this drop down while you have 10% on the legs. In a moment, I'm asking you to do one more thing. I'll let you get a couple more breaths. Just allowing that all to relax. Good. Now let the energy that's building in your heart drop a little bit lower into the stomach. Could be the upper stomach, could be the whole stomach. And ask all this rib cage right here to relax. Just allow it to open down there. There you go. So you still have the heart, but that energy is not dropping in. You should feel yourself sink into your chair. And it might only be 1%. That's perfect. Just like that. And feel the room around you with your stomach and your heart now. Should feel more unified. If you really, unless you got some stuff going on in your stomach you don't want to feel. Some people do. If you're on this call and you're getting sick or something, that could be some stuff that's coming up. But if you're comfortable with it, your heart will start to feel safer and even actually want to open more as you begin to feel the stomach. And again, check in with
It's
the
almost like
legs.
it's
Feel Mother Earth
widening
supporting you.
up the whole space.
Yeah, that's what happens, exactly. Now feel Mother Earth beneath you. Feel how big she is. Feel her really supporting you so your heart can open, your stomach can open, your face can relax. You don't have to hide. You can speak your truth. There you go. Good. Good. Now, how's this feeling?
Yeah, it's almost like I am, like this whole inner world is opening up and relaxing at the same time.
Yeah.
Like it feels like there's
this is
more,
where
there's a space, a lot of space and a lot of like calmness that is coming up in my system.
perfect. And this is where, like you're doing, you can explore micro movements so you can go deeper. Because wherever you're wanting to move, there's probably some numbness or resistance or reactivity. Now I'm going to invite you to see that shaking movement you do, a little side by side shaking movement. You feel it? That one. Slow it down and make it more conscious. Just feel, there you go, right in there. Feel it connect down and lower into your body. That's it. That's it.
Wow.
And see how it gets a little turn on in it now? Now you got your turn on. Your second chakra is kicking on. You feel it happening?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a rush. Do you feel a rush?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a rush of, yeah, like energy, turn on, life, kind of joy.
Now do that shake the way you were doing it, faster, and notice you're throwing off a little energy to be comfortable. Now slow it down and move in the energy, in time with the energy, so you're forced to feel it. And then till your body can relax into it. There you go. It's starting to relax. There it is. There it is. Eventually you'll be able to speed back up and stay in the energy. That's it. That's it. Expand into it, with it. That's it. Now see if you can speed the shake up a little bit, but stay with feeling. Don't lose. That's it. Keep going. Speed it. You don't even want to speed it up now, do you?
It's like it's so enjoyable to like do it so slowly.
Yeah.
It's almost like I'm watching an inner movie of like, you know, kind of like experience or feelings coming up as I move so slowly.
Good. Now, take your hands for me, Jonas. I'm just looking at you directly, and just touch right through here, your cheeks, just with like gently with your fingers. Any place you think your fascia is holding a little bit of tension, ask it to let go a little, so it'll drop the energy into your jaw, then ultimately your throat. And you want to get that energy to drop down, and then eventually it comes all the way down through the throat to the heart. You'll feel your heart increase again. You'll feel more, but you have to be willing to feel more vulnerable or seen in the face. We hide with the face, and then we bind and pull the energy up and out.
It's vulnerability coming up, yeah.
Yeah, there it is. The face has insane amount of micro expressions, places we hide, so we don't get
and
seen.
I used to hide in like a blank face sometimes, so, or in a smiling face.
There you go. Notice your heart's getting more vulnerable. Can you feel it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now try the jaw area. Let's see what's here. The jaw holds so much anxiety and tension and binds.
The head kicking as well, as like I probably look silly.
Yeah. So you're getting into more proactive, you're catching your reactive and proactive movements. And as you get more proactive, you release more. Reactive is just to throw the tension off so you don't have to deal with it.
Mm.
And then ultimately you'll bring it through the heart and all the way to the stomach, down to the turn on. And you'll feel it. You'll start to connect this whole center pillar all the way down into your turn on.
It feels like I could do this like for half an hour or 1 hour just in the front. As it's like feels like it's whole just opening up the whole front of the body, and like it's kind of sounds silly, but like these little movements here and allowing myself to feel that as it's dropping down, it's like something is moving there. That's like well, way more
Okay,
than
now
I would expect.
feel the ground beneath you 10% while you do that. And then what I want you to do now is, your toes. Your toes are they take energy in. They're like the heels and the back grounds, and the toes receive, and the ball of the foot receives. So imagine your toes are like highly sensitive fingers, and just through your shoes, scrape the ground with your toes a little bit, and see if you can pull some energy up into the body. That'll get eventually, if it goes all the way up the body, it'll get into the microcosmic orbit, and then it'll increase the energy in your heart again. And you'll feel that tingle. It'll run all the way up through the inside of the legs, typically into the turn on, and then it'll run up the spine and back around. If you can see, I'm telling you a lot. I wouldn't normally say all this, but I know you can feel a lot, so I'm just playing. There you go. You feel that?
It's almost like it's filling up like a battery or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're 100% right. We're exactly like a battery. It's called energetic medicine. That's why we pull electrons from the earth. We're charging the easy water in the body with electrons, which gets rid of inflammation, which heals the body. Just like we take rays from the sun and we absorb those through our eyes and skin.
Yeah.
We are a battery, and our battery pack is the earth and the sun. They charge us up. Isn't it cool when you grab the ground with the toes? There's a little bit of that, like you're talking to the earth and you pull energy up, and then you can ground it back down if you need to, or pull it up, whatever you want to do.
Like
I'll do that in the middle of a conversation. I'll just talk and I'll start to pull energy.
The coolest thing is like, as you said before, like this the tiny little movement as I'm like just in a very tiny small little movement, like putting my toes into the ground. I start as it's almost as if you connect the electronic contacts of a battery to like a device, and only it's just a slight little connection, and suddenly it starts to like whoosh.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I force it, it's not gonna happen. If I push it
never.
down.
It'll shut off. And people that are only feeling a little bit, like, I can feel a little bit. That little bit is a lot. 5 minutes of that little bit builds up really fast.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, if you're talking to somebody, grounding them for 5 minutes, that could be amazing for the other person. The feeling you ground yourself and them for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And they can really appreciate that. Now, you're going to notice I don't follow like a set routine all the time. And I try to avoid that as much as I can. And the reason I did that, like I did it fast in the beginning, came back, slowed down, and kind of played with different things depending on you and the individual, is because when you give a set routine, and I'm going to create one, I'm going to try to be very careful. I'm going to create a program around this at some point this year, I think, around subtle movements. But when you create a set routine, the analytical mind eventually takes over and it starts losing its efficacy. So I'm always encouraging students, like my teacher did, to explore movement in a new way. Don't let it become rote or routine. Otherwise, you lose the feeling and then the growth.
I'm still a little bit in the zone of this whole thing. It's almost like a drug or something.
It is. It's like mushrooms without mushrooms at some point. Yeah, if you go deep enough. And then, the next step for you would be to connect that base spine energy as you're starting to pull more from the earth and start running it up through the vertebrae, up into the heart, and then ultimately up into the back of the head. So you're waking up the third eye, decalcifying the gland in there, the pineal gland, decalcify the pineal, they call it cals, but and then eventually that's when you start getting a lot of inner vision. That's why they call it the third eye. You start seeing energetically things that you can't see with the physical eye, and you start getting images and visions. But you don't want to do that unless you're feeling all. Some people try to do it from the heart to the third eye. That's no. Go all the way from the base of the spine to the third eye. You can make sure that energy
Hmm.
is connected into the earth, so that you don't have problems.
Hmm. Yeah, and what I found really beautiful about this whole demonstration now, well, obviously me being in it and the first one too, is that actually to understand, to see that it's so much more about really exploring, just what you just said. Like it's so much more about exploring and then seeing how does my body actually react,
Yeah.
and how what's really there. It's just gonna like open this new world. Like for me, it almost felt like I'm kind of like watching like an internal TV show or something of like, well, now there's
Mm-hmm.
this happening, now there's that happening, now there's that happening,
Oh, it's
and
endless.
it's endless,
The
and
amount of
it's
sensations, endless.
yeah,
You know?
and what I found so fascinating is that actually this is always there. We're just not noticing it,
Yeah.
and that is also like in the positive but also in the negative sense. It's there in the sense as all this, like I just realized how much like tension I had in my body as I was doing it, and this tension I wasn't necessarily aware of, but it's gonna have an impact. It's gonna have an impact that
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna receive what I'm saying, that people are gonna receive me, and like if I go through the world and there's all this tension there that I'm not aware of, that's gonna make it hard for me to relate with people or just to, you know, go ahead, get ahead in my with my goals. And
Oh yeah,
and
the tension. If I am focused and I'm numbed out, that's less awareness of the other person. Like as I get more awareness of myself and the flow of energy through myself, and then I start to give that away to the world. The more I receive from the world, the more I just get. Oh, this person's sad. This person's happy. This person needs me to ask about this. This person needs me to ask about that. And you do it, and you're like, and they're like, "How did you know that?" It's because you were receiving their energy and you were getting intuitive hits from your gut brain or different parts of your body where you were signaling, and you listen to that stuff. I'm getting as an image over and over of my grandma. Let me ask about her grandma. I've done that. And then the people start crying. That very thing, the grandma. Or I have a friend who's learning this new massage system where she works these points on their head and she receives their energy. She does a lot of movement too. And she said, I'm not supposed to talk, but I just kept getting this intuitive hit. I'm supposed to say this. I'm supposed to say this. So I started doing it with one of her friends. And what she was saying was exactly what her friend was thinking. And it made her friend super emotional, super like, how did you feel everything that I was feeling? Because it runs through you. But if your
yeah.
system's shut off and you're in your head, nothing runs through you. It's just a dead matter world, or it appears to be a dead matter world,
Yeah.
Matter-based
Yeah.
world. Dead matter, that doesn't make sense, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Cut off matter-based
I
world.
mean, that's even another topic, but I think we don't necessarily have too much time to explore this. But like, also sometimes it can be important to like be able to like not run everyone's energy through my system, or not to like,
Yeah.
how can I stay in my own energy and not take on everyone else's energy, which is another
If
thing.
you're
But
codependent, that's a real problem. You want to absorb
exactly,
everybody's energy, and then you're sick all the time because you're trying to take care, because you don't let it go either. You take it in, you don't ground it out, you stick it in your body somewhere, and then
exactly.
you wonder why you feel like crap.
Exactly. And so like the whole like this whole thing all just also starts by learning to feel and learning to get in contact with everything that's there.
Yes. Get into feeling, and you can get into feeling and grief, and you can identify with grief, but that'll be a victim, because you can also be separate from feeling. And then as you go up the emotional scale, real feeling, vulnerable, I'm taking responsibility for what I'm creating internally and externally, life happens at the level of courage and above on the emotional scale, which is actually behind me over here. You kind of see
Mm.
it. I don't know. Yeah. Shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, lust, anger, pride. This is win lose. This is all the lower emotions that don't serve you. This is where life begins, the level of courage, win win. That's a Hawkins scale 200. And I added some of Hawkins' emotions in here. We've got neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, peace, joy. This is where you live a good life. Down here, where most people are, or about at least 50% of the population, this is where you live a life of struggle. And you have all these emotions, everybody does, but wherever you're dominant, is what you want to notice. At the bottom, it's inward, it's poor me, grief, apathy, save me, take care of me, you know, pride and anger, lust, anger, pride. I'm going to go out and dominate the world. And courage and above, we're going to create win-win solutions for the world and learn to love. And this all happens within the body and through the body. As you release more and more, naturally, each one of these levels is more resistance in the body. As I release more resistance, I get higher and higher and higher naturally, right up towards peace. When there's no resistance, it's pure flow state and pure peace and pure love and all that stuff. So
And I think the interesting piece for people like to take away from this scale is that actually most of these things are going on some level in our body. Like most of these emotions are there in whatever context, whatever like parts of our body, whatever situations, people, relationships. And the more we are aware of these emotions and these things that are actually there, the more we can actually work with them, the more we can kind of like process things so we get lighter, because the higher we are on the scale, the lighter we feel, and also the lighter our life is going to be, in the sense that it's much easier to attract like the things that we really want to have in our life. It's easier to be, you know, like if you want to be fulfilled, if you want to be happy, we're not gonna like on this scale, if you're in shame, if you're in guilt, you're not gonna feel that. And so at the same time, however, it's important to feel the shame if it's there. You have to feel the guilt because otherwise you cannot skip it. And so I think really that like for people that have never seen this scale, like this scale is like a kind of like a reference to see like what's there in my internal like landscape and how can I work with that so I can actually get lighter in life, right?
Yes. Yeah. If you're identified with shame, you're identified down here, the bottom of the scale. But if you could start to see the shame from courage, you can do that almost instantly. Get the courage to say, you know what? I see shame. The shame isn't necessarily me. I can handle it. Now you're starting to move up to courage already. And that's where you go free. So courage doesn't mean you don't have these lower emotions. It just means that you don't identify with them anymore and you can look at them from a higher state of consciousness. Yeah. And that people need to understand that because they think they have to get rid of all these lower emotions right away. And I'm like, they're always available to you. Even if you're living in peace, I can walk into a room full of apathetic people, feel the apathy. I just won't take it personal. Yeah. I'm like, oh, it's just apathy. But down here, you know, apathy sucks if you're identified with it.
Yeah.
So
which is another whole other level. Like what's the difference between feeling these emotions or like getting lost in them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The difference is courage and above. As Hawkins would say, life begins at courage. Hawkins, one of his things was to chart the scale of emotions from 0 to 1,000, and it exponentially gets stronger. And so from 0 to 200, 0 to 199 is right here. 200 is courage. So we have from courage and above, we have like 800 points of consciousness. I mean, like you're barely getting started when you start living from courage. That's where, and everything good starts happening from courage. And so it's amazing. Eckhart Tolle would say that living down here is basically insanity, and living up there is sanity. That's where sanity starts. So
yeah.
And I lived most of my life down here. A good chunk of it I lived down here.
Yeah.
That's why I understand it so well. My family's filled with apathy, grief, and shame, and I love them, but they have a lot of it, but they work on it. They're good people. Don't think because you're down there you're not good people.
Yeah, obviously, like we are all experiencing these kind of things. It's not bad to experience these things. It's just that the more we can actually process and work with these, with all the emotions on that scale, the more we're gonna be on average and on like feeling lighter and being upper on this scale. That is just gonna be a more enjoyable experience for us.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Thank you so much for like all the wisdom that you've shared with us today, Brian. And yeah, I feel that's definitely also very powerful, like a little introduction in terms of the exercise to see like what happens if I actually explore my own body and I follow along with this exercise.
I'll share this. Once you get into feeling, when you get this vehicle starting to kick on, one of the things you can do is start to not just affect the outside world, but you can explore like one of the things I like to do is put people on video and then film their relationship to different things like money or women or men for women or whatever it is, their health, and you can see, you start to see through the feeling all the archetypes and the imagery and the feelings coming out of their body. You can see it on the camera through the subtle communication, the micro expressions, the energy, and that allows people to start breaking that stuff down. Some of these deep stored mythologies that are stored in the body, the myths that you're running, like all the games you're playing with the world, all start to come out. And
Yeah.
they're basically trying to detox themselves like coming out of a sponge.
And once you see it, you cannot like unsee it. Like I just see it
No.
in every interaction now. I just see like all the energetics that are going on. And back in the day, I
Yeah.
wouldn't notice. But once you see it, you just feel like that's actually happening on that level. That's happening on that level as well, and that and that. That. And the person is actually saying that,
Yeah.
but I feel all this other stuff as well. So it's
And then
fascinating. It's so fascinating.
I'll get past the one big worry. People worry that, how do you keep from judging people when that happens? Well, judgment has to do with making them right or wrong.
Yeah.
If they're in apathy and you don't make them right or wrong, but you can state they're in apathy, yeah, they're in apathy. That just is. It's not a right or wrong. It's not good nor bad. And you truly believe that, you're not judging them. You're just
Yeah.
stating a fact. You're stating something you see, and you're even open to the fact you could be wrong. That's a big important part as a teacher. I could be wrong. So don't take this
Mhm.
100%. Try it on. It's not my job to tell you how to live your life. It's my job to present options and to show you a way out and get you to see things. And it's
Mhm.
your job to do something with it. You know?
Yeah. And one thing I would invite you, if you're watching this interview and you're curious about these like micro expressions and the interaction with people, like Brian has videos on his YouTube channel where he really actually demonstrates this. Like there's like especially guys talking to women, and then you actually give live feedback on what is going on. Either
Mm.
you're making a demo with like a woman where you're talking to her and like all these subtle things that are going on at the same time, or you're taking a student through it, and you can just see all these details that we're talking about now, these different layers. You actually name them. So it's super fascinating to watch these videos and just see that actually maybe there's way more going on that I'm aware of in interaction with other people. And the more I
Yeah.
can be aware of all these different levels, the more conscious I can work on the parts that might not be working the way that I am showing up in the world, that I'm, speaking to other people, interacting with other people. And like this has opened a whole new world for me. And yeah, I think it will also for you if you're gonna watch these videos.
Yeah. And I want to really start a channel dedicated just to this work, not so much the dating side, but it's a challenge right now because I'm revamping the dating stuff, and supposed to be starting a podcast soon with another guy. Um, and I got all these workshops. So I don't know when I'll get to that, but that is on my list of once
Mm,
I have to get each piece stabilized with somebody running it before I go to the next piece, because otherwise I'll
yeah.
be trying to do too many things at once. So,
Mm. And
so
so, if people are interested in this kind of work that have stayed until the end of this interview and are like, "Oh my God, how can I contact Brian? How can I work with this guy? Like, how can I, get more?" So, what do you think is a good address, or how can they get in contact with you or your work?
if they're interested in the dating stuff and the everything they see on the YouTube channel there, go to thefearlessman.com, and just there's a mailing list, there's events page, everything that's going on is there. If you're interested in working with my personal brand, brianbayesian.com, which is currently called True Courage, is changing over.
Okay.
Yeah, and then eventually that's going to be brianbayesian.com. We'll have a link taking you from True Brian Bayesian or from truecourage.io over. So it doesn't matter what you type in; they'll both work. And
Okay.
there's a email list there, and that will be all for the deeper personal embodiment work, and then and 6-month training programs where we talk about all the consciousness stuff, and that's where all that's handled. And that's and I do a lot of live free, like I did one earlier today, a free call where I just kind of talk about this stuff with people, students, people that are interested. And so
How can
the
people find
invites to
this
those
kind of
free calls,
free calls?
yeah, that'll be in the email list. Just go to truecourage.io and sign up for the email list, and you'll
Okay.
get before every call, you'll get noticed. And I do them about once every couple weeks to a week, every other week. I'll do a little a call where we go into all kinds of topics in this area. So they're a lot of fun.
Awesome. Awesome. So
And
anything else you want to say, like for the closing of this interview? Anything you wanted to add?
no, it's been a lot of fun. This is the work I love to do, and this is where everything comes back to. For me, when I teach, whether it's the Fearless Man or something else, it always comes back to this stuff, you know. Whether I'm teaching about money, whether I'm teaching about health, whether I'm teaching about the Fearless Man, it comes back to your level of embodiment, your connection to yourself, your connection to the environment. Because ultimately, my biggest goal, a lot of people have missions. My mission is to help everybody live a fulfilled life. I don't care if that's making 20,000 a year or a million or 10 million a year. It's not about that, because if you're at 10 million a year and you're miserable, what's the point? So how do you live a life with your heart blasted wide open, encouraged, feeling fully alive, waking up ready to seize the day? That's what life's about for me and for helping other people. So they get up every day and like, oh, I can't wait to hang out with my kids, or I can't wait to build my business, or I can't wait to go skiing, whatever it is. And then I love to help other people. I want to help you guys get so happy that you want to give away that happiness to others. And then that's how we spread it around the world. So
beautiful, beautiful ending words. Thank you so much. And for everyone watching, if you like this interview, I would love for you to hit the like button. And if you want to support my channel, I would appreciate you hitting the subscribe button so you can subscribe and be notified. Also, if you want to be notified when new videos are going to come out, you can press on the notifications bell so you will be notified for each new video that's going to come out. And there's also a lot of other interesting interviews. So if you want to check them out, I'm going to link some of them up here. And all the links to Brian's work, you're going to find them in the description of this video. So thank you so much for watching. And
let me know when it comes out. I'll try to hop in the comments section a few times that week and chat with and say hi to everybody.
Perfect. So if you want to like chat with Brian, then just go into the comment sections of this interview. Yeah.
There you go.
Awesome. Yeah, so have a good day, and thank you so much.
Awesome. Take care, guys and ladies.